Hello students, your instructor here, John Mandula with another screencast, this one part of the Serifs #1 group, and this is Frutiger. Frutiger, named after the designer, Adrian Frutiger. And a few things you'll notice right away. First thing you'll notice that it doesn't seem all that different from everything else you've already looked at. Try to put that behind you and try to look for some things that do make it stand out. One of which is the R. The R is a very important character in the typeface Frutiger, and that it comes at an angle, and it curves gently back into the crossbar, which then connects to the stem. So it doesn't connect to the stem, it goes here. It doesn't just plop off like on Franklin Gothic, for example, but it actually curves gently back in there. But then here it stays flat. It doesn't tail out like on Universe or Helvetica. It just hits the baseline and stops. That's the number one thing. Number two thing, the M and the A, you can see it better when they're side by side. The M and the A are very, very wide. Especially that A, look how wide the A is. It's like a man standing with his legs just spread out really far. I don't really know why it's so wide, but it is. The M and the A are very wide. They're square at top, both of them are. The E is relatively narrow. The S, I notice the S because there's nothing to notice about it. It's very unassuming, it's very delicate, it's very simple. It doesn't get fat at the end like Optima. It doesn't come at a sharp angle like Accidents Grotesque or Franklin Gothic. It just kind of stops, not perfectly upright, but close. There's a pretty decent X height, but just everything's so loopy. The N, very loopy and curvy. The A, big bulbous bowl on there. I mean, look at that sucker. It just sticks out like a fat man's belly hanging over his belt. I mean, it just plops out there. The letter I noticed the most though in Frutiger, besides the capital R, I'm going to zoom in really far here. Not that far. I'm going to look for the lowercase e. Now, it's a very odd character. Look at this. So it's thick and a little bit thin. And then it's got the thin crossbar on it. Thicks out here a little bit. And then this comes down, and the finial is perfectly upright. What's odd though is that it doesn't come aligned with this edge. It just stops right there, almost cuts this stroke in half. Goes right up there. But it stays very low, very close to the baseline. That's an interesting thing I noticed about Frutiger. Another thing is that the T, pretty wide crossbar, decent size finial or tail on it, and then the chiseled top. But I noticed mostly the lowercase e, the uppercase A and M, which are extremely wide, and then the uppercase R, which has the leg which kicks out but then gently goes back to the bowl. Look, some examples of it in use. Here's the most noteworthy example of it in use. Flicker. Well, this obviously is a heavier version of the typeface, but a few things you can notice. One, K comes almost to it comes to a point that almost doesn't touch. Alright? You have the pretty dramatic, just about perfectly vertical endings in the C. The F, so the crossbar is pretty close to the hood on the F, but it's still a pretty bulbous hood on there. Another example is this one, see if I can fit this all in there. So here, if I look at it, there's that E again, right? This lets me know right away that I'm looking at Frutiger because that E gets thicker on the left and right sides. And then the finial, it's perfectly vertical, and it doesn't align with the right edge of the letter. It just cuts that stroke in half. Alright, the 1 is a very simple 1. The numbers are pretty clean, easy to read. That's why it's used in things like airport signage. The N, again, the big fat belly bowl sticking out there. And the ending on the A comes almost straight down. Muse is the band, and they decided to use Frutiger for their typeface. The two things you can really notice is not much, but one, how wide the M is, and then also the S is just very unassuming. Nothing about it is exciting or dramatic at all. It's a very, very unassuming S. It's only slightly thicker in the spine than it is everywhere else, only slightly. The last example is Stuff It. This is software for the Mac or PC apparently. It's a zipping software. And again, the F has this gentle curve on it, pretty loopy curve. There's the T, it's a little bit thicker, but there's a pretty wide crossbar, generous tail, and a chiseled top. And again, the S, pretty unassuming. It might even be altered here a little bit to give it a little bit more flair. But that's Frutiger in a nutshell. And again, this is the most common example. Goodbye.